Ethan's boots crunched softly on the alien soil, a strange mixture of dark purple dust and small glowing crystals. His eyes scanned the horizon, filled with enormous trees that shimmered under the faint light of two suns. He had never seen a planet like this, not even in the most advanced holographic maps on his ship. Floating rocks hovered in the distance, defying gravity as if they belonged to a world entirely different from anything humans had ever imagined. He adjusted his visor, trying to record everything. This mission was supposed to be simple: collect samples, study the terrain, and report back. Yet from the moment he stepped onto this planet, he realized that simplicity would not exist here. Every sound, every movement, even the wind seemed alive. Ethan's gaze shifted to the forest ahead. There, moving with a strange fluidity, was a figure unlike anything he had seen. A humanoid shape, tall and graceful, glided between the trees, her skin marked with patterns that glowed faintly in sync with the light. It took him a moment to process it. This being was not only alive, but radiated an energy that seemed connected to the forest itself. He crouched behind a thick trunk, careful not to make a sound. His hand shook slightly as he reached for his recording device. The alien woman moved with purpose, unaware of his presence, or perhaps aware but indifferent. Ethan's curiosity overpowered caution. He wanted to see the markings on her back. They seemed alive, shifting like a moving map. Patterns glimmered, colors pulsing from deep blue to bright green. He had to know what they meant. Ethan's focus made him forget everything else. The sounds of the forest, the chirping of strange creatures, the rustle of luminous leaves, faded into the background. His eyes never left her back. He took careful photographs and jotted notes, fascinated by how the lines and symbols changed as she moved. It was as if her body itself contained a language, one that had survived thousands of years, waiting to be understood. Then, something changed. The forest grew silent, and a slight shift in the air made him tense. He felt it before he saw it, eyes on him. Slowly, he turned his head and his stomach tightened. The alien woman had stopped moving. She stood perfectly still, as if frozen in time, her glowing eyes fixed directly on him. "Why do you keep looking at my back, human?" Her voice cut through the forest, clear and commanding. It was unlike anything he had heard before, a mixture of authority, curiosity, and something wild. Ethan froze, his mind raced. Did she mean to attack? Was this a threat? But her posture was not aggressive. She was tall, taller than any human he had ever seen, with a strong athletic build. Her movements had been fluid like a dancer, but now she was still, her glowing markings flickering like small lights. I didn't mean to," Ethan began, but he stumbled over his words. The words sounded weak even to him. "You were staring," she interrupted, her eyes narrowing. "Do you understand the danger of your actions?" Ethan swallowed hard. I was curious. I saw the patterns on your back. They're beautiful, and I thought maybe I could learn something. I didn't mean harm." The alien woman tilted her head slightly, observing him. For a moment, Ethan thought she might attack, but then she took a slow, deliberate step closer. Her presence was overwhelming. He could feel a faint warmth radiating from her body. Her markings glimmered brighter, as if reacting to his fear. "I am Liara," she said finally, her voice softer now but still firm. "And those patterns you watched? They are not decoration. They are the history of my people, the record of knowledge we carry in our very bodies. To watch without permission is unusual." Ethan nodded quickly, feeling both nervous and amazed. "I understand, Liara. I didn't know." I promise I will respect it. I have never seen anything like it. I wanted to study it, to understand. That's all." Liara's gaze lingered on him. Slowly, her tension eased, though her eyes remained sharp. "Curiosity is not a crime," she said. "But ignorance can be dangerous. You must be careful on this planet. Many things you do not understand could harm you." Ethan exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. "I will be careful. I promise." Liara nodded slightly, then turned, her body moving with that same strange grace. She didn't walk. She glided, almost floating above the ground. Ethan followed, careful to keep his distance. His mind was racing with questions. What were these markings? How did they hold so much information? And why did they glow? As they moved deeper into the forest, Ethan noticed small creatures watching them from the shadows. Some were no bigger than his hand, others the size of a dog, with translucent skin and tiny wings that shimmered like glass. The forest seemed alive, reacting to their presence. The air was thick with the scent of alien flowers, and every step revealed plants that seemed to respond to movement, curling or opening in response. Liara finally spoke, breaking the tense silence. "You are brave to follow me. Most humans would have fled after the first warning. I had to know more," Ethan said honestly. "I've explored many planets, but I've never seen anything like this. Your markings. Everything about you is remarkable." Liara paused and glanced at him over her shoulder. "Remarkable, perhaps, or perhaps foolish. You risk much by being here, human. Do you understand that?" Ethan nodded. "I understand. But I can handle danger. I've trained for it. I want to learn, to see things no human has ever seen before." A faint smile appeared on Liara's lips. It was almost imperceptible, but it made Ethan's heart race. "Curiosity and courage can be powerful," she said. "But you must respect the balance of this world. The forest is not just home to my kind. It protects itself, and it does not forgive mistakes easily." They continued walking, Ethan carefully observing everything around him, trying to absorb as much as possible. He noticed how Liara moved silently, how her feet barely touched the ground. Her back shimmered faintly with symbols that seemed to shift as she moved, telling stories he could not yet understand. Suddenly, a rustling in the bushes ahead made Ethan jump. Liara stopped instantly, her markings glowing brighter, alert. A creature lunged from the shadows, a four-legged predator with glowing eyes and sharp claws. It was fast, almost too fast to react to. Ethan froze, unsure what to do. Without hesitation, Liara turned her body gracefully and moved like a blur. With a swift motion, she dodged the creature's attack and kicked a small device that emitted a high-pitched sound. The predator paused, confused, giving Liara enough time to leap away. Ethan watched in awe. She was incredible, fast, strong, and perfectly in tune with the environment. His fascination deepened, but so did his respect. This was not a being to be studied casually. She was alive, aware, and powerful. Liara glanced at him, her eyes calm now, but still intense. "Do not forget your place, human. Curiosity is a gift, but foolishness can be deadly. Remember that." Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. I understand. Thank you for letting me stay alive." She turned back to the forest, moving deeper into the trees. Ethan followed, careful to match her pace without intruding. He felt a strange connection forming, not just because of his fascination with her markings, but because he sensed intelligence, wisdom, and history in every movement she made. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the glowing forest, Ethan realized that this encounter was only the beginning. Liara's world was vast, full of mysteries, and he was just beginning to understand the rules. Yet despite the danger and the strangeness, he felt a thrill he had never experienced before. Somewhere deep inside, Ethan knew that learning the story behind Liara's markings would change everything, for him, for humanity, and perhaps even for Liara herself. And as he glanced at the glowing patterns on her back once more, he felt a mix of awe and curiosity that would not be quenched. The forest was alive. Liara was alive, and the human explorer had just stepped into a story far larger than himself. The alien forest grew thicker as Ethan followed Liara. The air was damp, carrying the sweet scent of strange flowers and the faint hum of unseen creatures. Every step seemed to echo softly, though the sounds were muted by the thick, glowing foliage. Ethan tried to keep his fear in check. Every time he glanced at Liara, her glowing markings seemed to shift slightly as if aware of his gaze. "You are brave to follow me this far," Liara said, her voice soft but steady. Most humans would have fled after the first predator attack. Ethan swallowed, trying to steady his breath. I can handle it," he said. "I want to understand. I've never seen anything like this forest or you." Liara's eyes flickered as she looked at him. "Curiosity is one thing. Boldness is another. You may survive, human, but do not confuse bravery with understanding. There is much here that you do not know." He nodded quickly. "I know. And I want to learn." Liara studied him for a moment longer before speaking again. "Then you must promise me something. You will not touch the markings unless I allow it. They are sacred, and they carry the knowledge of my people. Misuse them, and you will bring danger upon yourself and me." "I promise," Ethan said without hesitation. "I will not touch them. I want to observe and learn." A faint smile appeared on Liara's lips, almost invisible. Very well. Then watch carefully. But know this. Observation alone will not be enough to understand. As they moved deeper into the forest, the sunlight from the twin suns filtered through the canopy, casting streaks of golden green across the glowing plants. Strange creatures moved between the trees, some small and quick, others large and slow, all seeming to watch them from a distance. Ethan could feel the intelligence of the forest pressing in around him, as if the trees themselves were aware of the intruders. "Why do your markings glow?" Ethan asked cautiously, careful not to sound disrespectful. Liara glanced over her shoulder, her eyes narrowing. "They respond to my thoughts, my emotions, and sometimes to the environment. They are alive in a way you humans cannot fully understand. They can record history, predict outcomes, and even warn me of danger." Ethan's eyes widened. "Predict outcomes? You mean they think for you?" "Not exactly," she said, her tone patient. "They do not think as you do. They sense, they remember, and they guide. They are part of me, and I am part of them." The human explorer was fascinated. He had studied many alien species, but nothing like this. A living map of knowledge carried in the skin of a being. His mind raced with possibilities. How could humans learn from this? Could it be shared? Or was it too sacred, too dangerous? Suddenly, Liara stopped and crouched low, her eyes scanning the forest floor. Ethan followed her gaze and saw movement. A pack of small predators no bigger than wolves, with glowing eyes and sleek, dark fur. They were circling, silent and cautious, their teeth bared slightly. "Stay close," Liara whispered. Her markings flickered rapidly, brightening and warning. Ethan's heart pounded as he realized she had sensed them before he did. The predators lunged suddenly. Ethan froze, unsure what to do. Liara moved with incredible speed, spinning and leaping to block the first attack. She kicked one predator aside with perfect precision. The other predators hesitated, confused by her speed and confidence. Ethan realized that he could help. He grabbed a fallen branch and swung it, hitting one predator on the side. It yelped and backed off. Another lunged, but he sidestepped, remembering how Liara had moved moments before. Together they managed to drive the pack away, but Ethan felt the adrenaline pumping through his veins. Liara's glowing markings dimmed slightly as the threat passed. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You have courage, human. Few would act so quickly. Yet courage without understanding can be fatal." I understand," Ethan said, breathing heavily. "Thank you for letting me help." Liara nodded slowly. "You are learning. But there is much more to understand before you can truly see what these markings hold." They continued walking, moving toward a part of the forest that seemed even denser. Strange vines hung from the towering trees, glowing faintly, and small creatures darted between them. Ethan kept his eyes on Liara, fascinated not only by her markings but by her movements. She was like a part of the forest itself, graceful, aware, and perfectly in tune with everything around her. Finally, they reached a clearing where the light was soft and golden. A small stream flowed through the center, and the air was cooler here. Liara gestured for Ethan to sit on a smooth rock by the water. "Here," she said. "You may observe closely. But remember, the markings are not yours to touch." Ethan nodded, trying to control his excitement. He set down his recording devices and notebooks, ready to watch and learn. Liara turned her back to him, and for the first time he could see the full extent of her markings. They were intricate, flowing like a river of light across her shoulders and down her spine. Symbols shifted subtly, changing patterns as if telling a story only she could fully understand. "These markings," Liara began, her voice calm, "are a record of our history, our lessons and our warnings. Each line represents a story, a choice, or a memory. They are alive, and they respond to those who observe them. Some patterns are visible only when danger is near. Others reveal knowledge to those who are worthy." Ethan listened intently, taking careful notes. He realized that the shifting patterns were not random. They were responding to him as much as to Liara. Some lines pulsed brightly when he looked, others dimmed when he moved closer. I don't understand it fully yet," Ethan admitted. "But I want to. I want to learn." Liara's eyes flickered briefly. "Understanding requires trust, human. You must prove that your curiosity does not come from greed or foolishness." Before Ethan could respond, a loud crash echoed through the forest. Liara's body tensed, her markings flaring bright blue and green. "We are not alone," she said sharply. "Follow me and do exactly as I do." Ethan obeyed instinctively. He watched as Liara moved with precision, avoiding branches, leaping over roots, and using the environment to hide. Soon they reached the edge of a large canyon, the view breathtaking and dangerous. Across the canyon he could see figures moving, tall armored aliens he did not recognize. They were scanning the forest, searching. "They want the markings," Liara whispered, her voice low. "They seek knowledge that is not theirs to take." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. "We have to stop them?" "No," Liara said. "We survive. Knowledge is protected not by strength alone, but by wisdom and timing. Watch me." With remarkable agility, Liara led him through a hidden path along the canyon's edge. She paused often, listening, watching, and adjusting their route. Ethan realized that every movement she made was guided by the shifting patterns on her back. Somehow the markings were telling her what to do, where to go, and when to move. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the glowing forest, they reached a safer place, a small cavern hidden behind a waterfall. Inside, the air was cool and damp, and faint crystals embedded in the walls reflected Liara's markings. "You survived today," Liara said, finally allowing a small, approving smile. "Few humans would have made it this far. Perhaps you are worthy of learning more." Ethan nodded, exhausted but exhilarated. I want to help. I want to understand. Please show me." Liara studied him for a long moment. Then with a quiet grace, she sat by the stream and began to explain the first lessons of her markings. Ethan listened closely, realizing that this was only the beginning. The markings were not just beautiful, they were alive, wise, and dangerous. And in that moment, Ethan understood something deeper. This was more than a mission. It was a chance to build trust, to learn from a being far older and wiser than any human he had known. For the first time, he felt a connection, not just to Liara, but to the forest itself. Every movement, every glow, every sound was a message waiting to be understood, and Ethan knew he was ready to listen. The hidden cavern behind the waterfall became Ethan's temporary refuge. Water trickled softly over the rocks, and the glow from Liara's markings reflected in the crystal walls, casting patterns of light across the damp floor. Ethan sat carefully, on a smooth stone, trying not to disturb the fragile calm that had settled over them. Liara's back was illuminated, the intricate lines and symbols moving as she shifted. Ethan leaned closer, mesmerized by the flow. "Every movement changes them," he murmured. "It's alive." Liara glanced at him. "They are alive, but not in the way you think. They are a record, a warning, and a guide all at once. Each line tells a story. Each shift carries meaning. Only those who pay attention can understand them." "I want to understand," Ethan said earnestly. "I promise to respect them." She regarded him quietly for a long moment before nodding. "Very well, then observe carefully. I will teach you what I can, but you must understand one thing. Not all knowledge is safe. Some stories are dangerous, even for humans. Some knowledge can change your life forever." Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine. I'm ready." Liara shifted slightly, and Ethan's eyes widened as he noticed the subtle way the symbols began to form patterns he could almost recognize. He could see repetitions, sequences, and connections. "The markings, they react to me?" he whispered. "Yes," Liara said softly. "They sense your attention, your focus, even your intentions. They respond to understanding as much as to danger. Watch carefully. Learn slowly." Over the next hours, Ethan observed Liara's markings and tried to understand the patterns. Each line seemed to tell a story of her people. Battles fought, alliances formed, lessons learned, and mistakes that had shaped their history. Some symbols pulsed gently, signaling hope or triumph, while others flickered sharply, warning of danger or betrayal. Ethan realized that Liara's markings were not just history. They were a guide. They showed strategies, solutions to problems, and even warnings about approaching threats. And as he studied, he noticed a subtle rhythm. The markings shifted, more rapidly whenever danger approached, sometimes before even Liara sensed it. "I think I'm beginning to see," Ethan said quietly, his eyes wide with amazement. "It's like a living map, of history and knowledge at the same time. Liara nodded, though her expression remained serious. Yes, but remember this. Knowledge without wisdom is dangerous. You may understand patterns, but knowing what to do with them, that is another matter entirely. Just as Ethan absorbed this, a loud rustle echoed through the cavern. Both of them tensed. Ethan's heart pounded as he glanced toward the entrance, and Liara's markings brightened sharply, flickering like warning lights. They have found us, Liara said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. The faction that seeks the knowledge of my markings is close. They do not understand respect or balance. They want only power. Ethan's stomach tightened. What do we do? Follow me, Liara commanded. She moved with the same grace he had seen before, her body almost floating over the cavern floor. Ethan hurried to keep up, careful not to trip over rocks or puddles. Outside, the forest was darker now, shadows stretching under the light of the twin moons. From the trees he could see figures moving, armored, uniformed, and clearly hunting. Ethan counted at least a dozen, all scanning the forest with sharp sensors and advanced equipment. They were not ordinary predators. They were intelligent, trained, and dangerous. They want what is on my back, Liara whispered, her markings pulsing a bright green. And they will not stop until they take it. Ethan's mind raced. Can we fight them? Liara shook her head slightly. Not alone. Strength alone will not save us, but your human ingenuity. That may help. She guided him to a narrow canyon path, barely wide enough for two people. The rival faction advanced slowly, careful not to disturb the environment, but their presence was obvious. Ethan studied the markings on Liara's back, noticing subtle flashes of red and blue, warnings and suggested movements. Somehow the patterns were giving him clues. Move when the red flashes dim, Liara instructed. Stay silent, stay close, and trust the markings. They will guide you. Ethan nodded, trying to control his fear. The patterns shifted constantly, a living code he could only partially read, but instinctively he followed her, stepping where she indicated, crouching when the symbols pulsed rapidly, and pausing when the glow slowed. They moved through the forest, avoiding sensors and traps. Ethan was amazed. He had relied on technology and experience, but here intuition guided by Liara's markings kept them alive. Every shift in color, every flicker of light gave him information he couldn't explain but could act upon. After a tense hour, they reached a hidden grove filled with tall, luminous trees. Liara stopped and signaled Ethan to stay low. The rival faction paused at the edge of the grove, scanning, clearly frustrated at losing their trail. This is our chance, Liara whispered. We must create a distraction. Ethan scanned the area. He found several glowing vines hanging from the trees. If I trigger these, they'll attract attention, he said. Liara's markings pulsed sharply, a sign of approval. Ethan carefully yanked one vine and it shot up, releasing a cloud of tiny glowing spores into the air. The rival faction hesitated, confused by the sudden spectacle. Liara used the moment to sprint deeper into the grove, and Ethan followed, his heart pounding with adrenaline. They stopped behind a thick cluster of luminous trees, catching their breath. Ethan's mind was racing. I can't believe that worked, he said. Liara's markings dimmed slightly, signaling calm. You are learning quickly, but remember, understanding is more than survival. The markings teach, but only if you are willing to pay attention and respect them. Ethan nodded, still trying to process everything he had seen. It's incredible. The markings, the way they guide you. I've never seen anything like it. They are not just for me, Liara said softly. They are for anyone who is ready to listen. But knowledge comes with responsibility. What you do with it can change worlds. Ethan felt the weight of her words. He realized that this was more than a mission now. He wasn't just observing. He was part of something larger, a story that had been unfolding for centuries. The markings were alive, and they had chosen him in a way to learn, to protect, and perhaps to understand. As the twin moons rose higher, in the sky, Ethan and Liara settled in the grove for the night. The air was filled with the gentle hum of the forest, the soft glow of bioluminescent plants, and the flickering light of her markings. Ethan sat quietly, staring at the patterns and trying to memorize every shift, every line. Liara watched him for a long moment, then spoke. "You have potential, human, but potential alone is not enough. Trust, understanding, and respect, these are the keys. If you fail, not just you, but the knowledge I carry will be at risk." "I understand," Ethan said firmly. "I won't fail. I'll learn everything I can and I'll protect it." For the first time, Liara allowed herself a small nod of approval. It was not a smile, but it was acknowledgement. She shifted slightly, and Ethan could see the glow of her markings slow to a gentle rhythm, signaling calm and trust. As he drifted into a light sleep, Ethan realized that the bond between them was growing, not just as observer and subject but as allies. The forest had tested them, the rival faction had challenged them, and through it all, the markings had guided them. And in the quiet of the alien night, Ethan understood something profound. He was no longer just a human exploring a strange planet. He was part of a story, part of a living history, and the markings on Liara's back were showing him a path he could not yet fully understand, but one he was determined to follow. The forest whispered around them, alive and watching, and somewhere in its depths, unseen and patient, the patterns waited for the next lesson to be learned. The first light of dawn filtered through the dense canopy, casting soft golden streaks across the glowing forest. Ethan stirred, careful not to wake Liara, who was already awake, her glowing markings pulsing gently with the rhythm of the forest. The night had been tense, filled with whispered plans and sudden movements to avoid the rival faction that had pursued them. Yet despite the danger, a quiet trust had formed between them. Liara shifted, her back fully visible to Ethan now, the symbols moving slowly, almost like a calm river. "Today," she said softly, "you will learn something important. Not just about the markings, but about balance, trust, and understanding. What you have observed is only the surface." Ethan leaned forward eagerly. "I'm ready. I want to learn everything you can show me." Liara nodded, moving deeper into the clearing. "Then watch carefully. The markings tell more than history, they teach wisdom. They can guide, warn, and even heal, but they do not reveal everything at once. You must be patient." He watched, fascinated, as the glowing lines shifted, creating patterns he could now recognize more clearly. Some symbols resembled maps of terrain, while others formed sequences that seemed to hint at events and choices. He realized that the markings were not static. They were alive in a way that combined memory, foresight, and emotion. "They respond to the world around me," Liara explained, "and to those who are near. If you pay attention, you can learn to see what they see, feel what they feel, and even anticipate what is coming, but only if your heart and mind are open." Ethan nodded, trying to absorb every detail. It was incredible. The markings were a living record of an entire civilization. He thought of humanity and wondered how much they could learn from this knowledge if it could be shared responsibly. Suddenly, a distant sound cut through the morning air, a low hum, almost mechanical but unmistakably approaching. Ethan's heart raced. "Are they back?" he whispered. Liara's markings brightened sharply, flashing red and blue. "The faction," she said calmly. "They have returned. But this time we will not flee. Today we will show them the strength of understanding and trust." Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline. He had followed her through the forest, survived predators, and evaded a dangerous alien faction. But now they were preparing to confront them. Yet, unlike before, he no longer felt fear alone. He felt confidence, trust, and a growing connection to Liara and the forest itself. "Follow my lead," she instructed. "Observe, learn, and act when the markings guide you." They moved through the forest with careful precision. Ethan noticed that her markings pulsed with subtle instructions, almost like a silent communication. When he paused, the lines brightened. When he moved incorrectly, they flickered briefly as if warning him. For the first time, he understood that this was more than observation. It was partnership. As the rival faction entered the clearing, they paused, scanning for signs of their targets. Ethan felt his pulse quicken. There were at least a dozen armored figures, all armed and ready. Liara's markings glowed intensely, signaling imminent danger. She stepped forward, her posture calm but commanding. The faction hesitated, clearly not expecting resistance. Ethan followed, holding a small device he had rigged from their previous encounters, a tool to disrupt sensors and create distractions. With a flick of his hand, the device emitted a wave of light and sound, confusing the faction's equipment. At the same time, Liara's markings pulsed rapidly, guiding Ethan's movements. He dodged, blocked, and moved with a precision he had never experienced before, almost as if the markings were synchronizing with him. The faction tried to advance, but Liara's agility, combined with Ethan's quick thinking, kept them at bay. Ethan realized that the markings were not just a tool for Liara. They were a way for them to work together, human and alien, combining intuition and strategy in perfect harmony. After several tense minutes, the faction began to retreat, frustrated by the unexpected resistance. Ethan could hardly believe what had happened. We did it, he whispered, his voice trembling with awe. Liara's markings dimmed slightly, signaling calm. Yes, but remember, victory is not just strength. It is understanding, respect, and trust. You have shown all three today, human. Ethan exhaled, feeling a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. I couldn't have done it without you. Liara glanced at him, her expression softer now. And I could not have succeeded without you. The markings are alive, but they do not act alone. They require those who are willing to listen, to observe, and to act wisely. They moved deeper into the forest, the rival faction gone for now. Ethan noticed how the forest seemed to respond to their presence. Leaves swaying gently, bioluminescent plants pulsing softly, and small creatures emerging cautiously. It was as if the forest itself acknowledged their bond and the balance they had restored. They reached a small plateau overlooking a valley filled with glowing flora. Liara stopped and gestured for Ethan to sit beside her. You have learned much, she said. But there is one final lesson. Understanding is not just about observing or surviving. It is about respect, trust, and seeing the true value of knowledge. Ethan listened intently. I understand, he said. I will respect it. I want to protect it. Liara's markings shifted gently, forming intricate patterns that Ethan had come to recognize as stories of cooperation, courage, and wisdom. Then you are ready, she said. Not just to learn, but to carry knowledge forward responsibly. The markings have chosen you in a way. They see your heart, your intentions. They trust you as I do. Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. It was not just admiration for Liara or fascination with the markings, it was a sense of purpose. He realized that this journey had changed him. He was no longer just an explorer. He was part of a story, a partnership between human and alien, guided by knowledge, respect, and trust. Liara, he said softly. Thank you for trusting me, for teaching me, for everything. Liara turned slightly, her eyes meeting his. You have earned it, human. Trust is not given lightly, and knowledge is not shared without responsibility. You have shown both. For a long moment they sat in silence, watching the valley below. Ethan's mind replayed everything that had happened. The forests, the predators, the rival faction, and the lessons hidden in the glowing lines on Liara's back. He realized that the true value of the markings was not just in their knowledge, but in the connection they created, the understanding between two very different beings. Finally, Liara spoke again. Do you remember what you asked me the first day? Ethan smiled faintly. You mean, why do you keep looking at my back, human? Liara nodded. Her markings glimmered softly, almost like a smile. Yes, now do you understand? Ethan looked at her, his eyes filled with respect and admiration. I do. I was not just looking at your back. I was looking at your story, your wisdom, your courage. I was trying to understand everything you are and everything you protect. That's why I kept looking. For the first time, Liara's expression softened fully. She leaned slightly toward him, and the markings on her back shifted in a flowing pattern of light, signaling approval, trust, and acknowledgement. Then you have truly learned, she said. Not just about the markings, but about understanding, respect, and partnership. You see what most cannot. You see the whole story, human. Ethan felt a sense of fulfillment unlike anything he had ever known. He realized that the journey was not over. The forest held many more secrets, and the markings would continue to guide him. But for now, he had earned something far more valuable: trust, understanding, and a bond that bridged the gap between two worlds. The twin suns rose higher, bathing the valley in warm light. The forest buzzed softly with life, the glowing plants shimmering gently. Ethan stood beside Liara, looking at the patterns on her back with a new perspective. They were not just symbols. They were a living story, a guide, and a bridge between human and alien. And as he took a deep breath, Ethan knew that he was no longer just a visitor on this strange world. He was a student, a protector, and an ally. The markings had chosen him, Liara had trusted him, and together they had faced danger, learned from each other, and discovered something far greater than knowledge alone. The forest whispered around them, alive and aware, and for the first time, Ethan felt a true sense of belonging. He had entered a story that was bigger than himself, a story of trust, understanding, and hope. And he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he would face them with courage, guided by the wisdom and light of Liara's markings. For the human and the alien, the journey had only just begun, but together they were ready for whatever came next.